Good morning, everyone. Mike's MMA Picks here with you for a UFC Vegas 73 recap. It's early, 7 a.m. on the East Coast, where we are taking a look back at Mackenzie Dern's battle against Angela Hill and all that was UFC Vegas 73. It was an interesting card. We saw some spectacular finishes. We'll speak a little bit to Carlos Diego Ferreira's brutal knockout of Michael Johnson and others. How about Natalia Silva, etc.? So, solid card. Now we have a 2-week break until the next UFC, where we have Kai Kara France taking on Amir Albazi in what is a men's flyweight main event. If you don't think I have my eyes on that matchup, you'd be kidding yourselves. Great fight. But let's get back to this fight card here, where we had the first fight of the evening, which was Temba Gorimbo defeating Takashi Sato. And Takashi Sato has shown that his lack of a get-up game has really cost him his career, and wouldn't surprise me to see Sato end up with a pink slip here after this matchup. Imagine how frustrating it must be to be stuck on the bottom for multiple minutes, watching the clock tick away. And we saw Gunnar Nelson was able to walk away with the victory, wasn't able to lock up the submission. So one thing I will hand Takashi Sato, I will give him some credit for, is his submission defense. By the way, the coffee is flowing this morning on this lovely Monday morning. The birds are chirping, and Temba Gorimbo, not sure if you saw his post-fight interview and subsequent post-fight press conference, where he spoke of being on his last few dollars. Now this gets him back on track here, put some money in his pocket, and congrats to those who backed Gorimbo. I know we picked him to win, but I didn't lay any money on this specific bout. And he ends up getting the W. Showed a solid gas tank, really poured it on, tried to take Sato out of there early in the fight, and dropped him, emptied his tank. It looked as if he emptied his tank, but he ended up having some reserve there to carry him through all 3 rounds. So it was nice to see Gorimbo get back on track after taking the loss to AJ Fletcher. Next up, where we have Natalia Silva, who looked fantastic out there. I mean, she looked like a minus 3,000 favorite against Victoria Leonardo, who ended up in tears, slumped in the corner of the octagon, bleeding profusely from her face. And Natalia Silva really looked the part here. Torched is the word, Victoria Leonardo. And what's next for Natalia Silva? That is the question, because this was a layup matchup for her. And the advised pick prior to this matchup was Natalia Silva inside the distance. I did not end up playing it, but cheers to those who cashed it. And Silva, she's the striking is getting better every time out, and we know she's ferocious out there, and also her physique seems to be becoming more sculpted every time she competes inside of the octagon. So you could see the strength and conditioning is being taken seriously, and she is improving. So who is next for Natalia Silva? That is the question mark. And another situation on the other side of the fight, Victoria Leonardo. I think that was the last we've seen of Victoria Leonardo inside of the UFC's octagon. Next up, where we had the people's main event of the evening, Chase Hooper, who was a plus 110 underdog. Props to those who cashed the ticket on Chase Hooper, taking on Nick Fury, who, man, Chase Hooper, one of the bottom of the barrel lightweights here, and had enough in the tank to defeat Nick Fury. What did that feel like to watch Chase Hooper letting his hands go um, throughout the bout, and Fury overwhelmed at times? When he let his hands go, he was landing, but the problem was Fury was landing one strike at a time, and Hooper pushed the pace. Anytime that Fury ended up on top of Hooper in side control, etc., Hooper would use his legs to cause Nick Fury fits. And you watch this fight back, and Hooper was getting hit on the feet, but Fury just didn't have enough in the tank. And you saw up 10 pounds. It didn't necessarily help from a strength perspective, from a wrestling perspective. Fury was out grappling Hooper and putting him on the mat, but it only lasted for a few seconds because we know how proficient Chase Hooper is in the scrambling department, and he ended up coming out the other side with the victory. So cheers to those who cashed on Chase Hooper there. I was not one of the folks who was willing to put my money on any aspect of this bout because I saw volatility there. And Hooper, the confidence was not beaten out of him by Steve Garcia. That is clear. So proud of Chase Hooper for getting back in there and going after it and walking out the other side with the victory. Now, Nick Fury, I mean, if you're losing a striking battle to Chase Hooper, you have to really question what your future holds in the in mixed martial arts. I'm concerned for Nick Fury. I don't know how he's going to get up for another fight after this, to be honest, because you talk about Chase Hooper and what's next for him. I mean, man, I know I've seen a number of proposed matchups, Jordan Levitt, etc. A lot of folks want to see him fight grapplers. They don't want to see him fight any type of fighter who has the potential to hurt him on the feet. And the reality is, most UFC caliber lightweights would completely obliterate Chase Hooper on the feet. And Hooper, we know he's live if any fight hits the mat. And at 23 years of age, man, they really need to take it easy with Hooper here. I know he walked away with the victory, but he's still the arrow isn't necessarily pointed up for Chase Hooper. I'll say that. There's a gamut of fighters who would ragdoll him, and but we play the matchups that are in front of us, and Chase Hooper is he's at the mercy of whatever opponent he has in front of him. And on Saturday, he ended up walking away with the victory against Nick Fury, who the New England Cartel. Oh man, it's he's gonna have to walk back into that gym and lace up his bootstraps and get after it again. We'll see what happens with Fury. I'm not sure where Fury goes from here, to be honest. I'd like to hear in the comments section what you guys think. Next up, where we had Rodrigo Nascimento disposing of Ilir Latifi in a matchup that was pretty lackluster, I'll be honest. It was the lone heavyweight fight on the card and not very impressive. Nascimento was getting the better of Latifi on the feet at range, and we saw Latifi was able to change levels and put Nascimento on his back, but couldn't do much with it. Couldn't lock up any type of submission, couldn't really land much ground and pound. And Nacimiento is a lumbering, slumbering heavyweight who looked like he came in for a paycheck, but wasn't ready to finish the fight. Lone heavyweight matchup, goes the distance, goes all 3 rounds. Both of these fighters, not impressive heavyweights. And Latifi, we know he's a light heavyweight by trade, but just hanging on by the skin of his teeth here inside of the UFC. So Nacimiento is set up to be blown out of the water by most UFC heavyweights. By the way, I mean, you talk about the least talent-rich division in the entire sport, probably heavyweight, to be honest. Besides, I mean, you have one of the best of all time in John Jones at the top of the division, but besides that, there isn't much to offer. And Francis Ngannou ends up leaving the promotion and signs with PFL. I haven't spoken much about this, but Ngannou, what's the deal with this contract? Why isn't he fighting in 2023? The guy's going to be closing in on 40 years of age, and he's taking multiple years off. Very, very strange stuff. I know he is making some bank, but not sure who his opponent will be. But as far as this fight goes, disappointing effort from both fighters. Congrats to Nacimiento on the victory. And let's move on. Gilbert Urbina. This is one where I got this one wrong, this pick, but I did not have any money on this fight. Orion Kosi, blown out of the water, missed weight, and got subsequently lit up on the feet and blown out of the water on the mat. Gilbert Urbina looked the part. You saw that time away from the octagon really served him well. Came out like a man on fire there and showed that he has a lot to offer. And reminded me that mullet of Miguel Bautista out there pushing the pace, and he did not let up on the gas tank. So impressive win for Urbina. Congrats to those who cashed the ticket on Gilbert Urbina. Kosi not only missed weight, but he looked slow, looked like that rib injury really hurt him mid-fight and could not rectify the situation, could not turn the tide. And Kosi is another fighter who, I'll be honest, there are a number of fighters on this card who that may be the last of them inside the octagon here. I don't see Kosi coming back with another fight unless they're setting up his opponent to get a victory. So congrats to Gilbert Urbina backers in that specific spot. Next up, where we have Karolina Kowalkiewicz taking on Vanessa Demopoulos. Vanessa Demopoulos, she looked like she fought a horrific game plan out there. Got stuffed on I believe it was a double leg, the first attempted takedown. Kowalkiewicz shucked her off and then started landing on the feet. By the way, both of these fighters were throwing hands multiple times. And you watch the fight, you watch the fight back, and Kowalkiewicz, she had the cardio was there, the ferocity was there. It was a vintage performance. And I watched the broadcast. My tweet ended up on the broadcast as Karolina was inside of the octagon with Michael Bisping giving her post-fight speech. Still wonder how that happens on a regular basis. My tweets end up on the broadcast. Happy about it. I shocked sometimes, but that was a nice one to see up there. So props to Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Even at 37 years of age, still going strong. She was a loser of 7 of 9 bouts at one point in time inside of the octagon, and now turned the tide. So she's got a bright future, dependent upon who they put in front of her. That's the challenge here, because if she ends up fighting a top 5 fighter in that specific division, That could be a recipe for disaster. But Demopoulos, I mean, let's be honest, she has a skill set to pose Kovalevich problems. She didn't force the wrestling. She didn't go all out, and that was to her demise. I'm not sure who the who implemented that game plan at Elevation. If she avoided that game plan, because we've seen in the past Demopoulos, I mean, she's so stiff as far as a stand-up fighter goes. When she's on the feet, she's better suited on the mat, attempting to lock up submissions, but that's a lot easier said than done, right? You first have to get the fight to the mat, and Kovalevich was having none of it out there. So congrats to Karolina Kovalevich with the victory. And it might be a fade spot for Kovalevich now moving forward, because, she's riding a win streak, and you set her up with a fighter who is near the top of that division. Give me the opponent. Next up, where we have Lupita Godinez taking on Emily Ducote. And you watched Godinez out there. She looked about a minus 300 or so favorite yesterday, or on Saturday, against Emily Ducote, who we saw against the Angela Hill. The confidence wasn't there, and she was getting lit up at range. And it happened again here against Godinez. Throughout the fight, Ducote could not get any type of wrestling going, could not have any success on the mat, was eating the much heavier strikes against Lupita Godinez on the feet. And you have to wonder, folks who were willing to back Emily Ducote and lay a massive amount of units equaling percentage of their bankroll on Godinez, and that really raised a lot of eyebrows. I was scrolling through the timeline, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Why are folks on a women's mixed martial arts bout where you have a slight underdog who doesn't necessarily have a viable path to victory, unless you're talking about Godinez taking the fight on short notice and having a limited gas tank? But we saw Godinez push through. She got the better of Ducote through the first round and a half, 2 rounds or so. It won the third round, landed a takedown near the end of the round. And I was watching the live line too throughout this bout. Godinez was, I believe, minus 425 or so at some points, minus 325, minus 285. And then it ended up widening out towards the end of the fight as well. So I think folks would be better served not only avoiding low-level women's mixed martial arts bouts, but also consider revamping their unit sizing. You never want to risk double digits or even close to that percentage of your bankroll on one specific fight. And remember, one unit is 1% of the bankroll. This is not something that we play around with here. You have to be honest with yourself and pick your spots. The other thing is, some folks have success cutting their teeth and with different strategies throughout their handicapping career. So you have to find out what works for you. But I advise against laying a massive amount of your bankroll on fighters such as these. I wouldn't even go out of my way. I had no action on this bout. No action on Godinez versus Ducote. There's a saying, if you see an edge, go for it. But come on now, let's be honest. So Ducote walks away with the loss, and that's now multiple losses in a row. The Angela Hill fight, my God, that was a horrific look. And now Godinez gets back on track here with the victory, and here she goes. Let's see. Vanessa will fight for your money. Yes, she will. Yes, she will. Once Ducote can't. All right, let's see. Yes, you're right. Once she can't implement her own game, she gets clueless. And I I think the right word, Moise, is flabbergasted. That's what appears to be happening out there. So Godinez, good on her, getting back on track. Then we have Slava Claus, Borshev defeating Maheshate. Maheshate was uh, doing fairly well early in the fight, and then the tide turned, man. Those left hooks to the body by Borshev were difference makers. They were really nice to see. Um, the beautiful stand up bout, striker's delight that we were able to enjoy. And Maheshate um, ended up getting popped on the button and put out, and Borshev walks away with the victory. So nice to see Borshev get back on track. Granted, I mean, there was no real threat of grappling. I know Maheshate attempted a takedown, and he's not a takedown artist, so can't really expect him to do much with it. And we'll talk a little bit later in the fight, too, when Buckley was able to force a wrestling game on Fiallo. That was a fight where once Buckley got the fight to the ground, it wasn't like he was going to be holding Fiallo down. But in this fight, Borshev looking solid out there, and he's got hands, man. He's got hands. That was when he goes for it, the aggressiveness for Borshev. It's a beautiful thing to watch. That killer instinct, when that switch gets flipped, great stuff. So exciting fighter, and he came to party last on Saturday night. So cheers to Borshev, and cheers to Borshev backers as well. Thought Maheshate's straight punches would cause Borshev some fits, and they weren't. You saw that Borshev, his ability to cut angles, really caused Maheshate some problems out there. So cheers to Borshev. Then we get to the bout that I did have some action on. I had half unit on Buckley Fiallo. Fight doesn't go. Wait, no, I had under 2.5 rounds and minus 200. And this fight, you saw Buckley land that stunning head kick for the victory. And Fiallo, he's been knocked out many times. He just doesn't deviate from his game plan and what got him to the dance, which some could say is the smart thing to do. But then if you're getting brutally knocked out and you're only 29 years of age, he's been brutally knocked out a bunch of times. Maybe you got to change things up. And he didn't. He wasn't willing to do so. And it cost him here again. Buckley, quick at welterweight, man. Very quick. And that post-fight speech, my goodness, I wonder if he would do that again differently if he had the opportunity to do so. But cheers to Buckley for getting the knockout win. I believe it was a head kick, catching Fiallo off guard. And the wrestling, that was the thing. I watched the fight back, and it seemed like Buckley was just trying to keep Fiallo honest. That threat of the takedown probably opened up that head kick to land, because Fiallo had something to worry about there with the takedown threat. So cheers, Buckley. And who does he get at this stage in his career? I honestly think the arrow is pointed up for Joaquin Buckley here. He's got a bright future, and the cardio is there, man. That Imavov fight, I go back to that, and you watch. He's got that dog in him, man. He will go for it. Speaking of somebody who would go for it, by the way, cheers to Team Fortis here, who was in Carlos Diego Ferreira's ear throughout the entirety of his bout against Michael Johnson. Between the first and second round, making adjustments after Michael Johnson won the first round. And then we saw history repeat itself, where Michael Johnson was caught with almost the identical situation unfolded where he fought Josh Emmett. Um, that 1-2, that overhand right that came from Ferreira and connected on the chin of Michael Johnson, put him out cold. And you saw Carlos Diego Ferreira initially land a hammer fist and then cradle um, Michael Johnson in his arms. And you watch that fight back, and that's the one thing, man. Carlos Diego Ferreira, I know he's 38 years of age, but he has multiple threats. Watch the Tyson fight and others. He can have some success on the feet, and I know that he was losing the first round and a half or so, but 12 minutes do not make a fight. One round does not make a fight. These fighters fight until it's over, and it definitely ended. It was definitely over after Carlos Diego Ferreira landed the kill shot on Michael Johnson and put him out of there. So great performance from Ferreira. And where does he go from here? You know, the guy's he just turned 38, and man, what the hell happened to Gregor Gillespie? We need some answers. I'd love to hear from Gregor as far as his future in mixed martial arts. He Gregor Gillespie, one of the most talented individuals at lightweight, and could have really posed a threat to a lot of folks in the division, but has opted to sit on the sidelines here. And you look at Ferreira's previous three losses, and they were against high-profile grapplers who had look at their resumes. Um, Michael Johnson, he's not a grappler. He is a striker by trade who has found ways to lose fights, and that's what happened on Saturday night. He found a way to lose a fight again in a similar fashion where he was winning. And Ferreira walks away with the victory. So cheers to Carlos Diego Ferreira. Brutal knockout. We cashed that ticket minus 146. Waited for the line on fight day to drop from minus 150 to minus 146, and cashed over a unit there. And the plays went 3 for 3. Bets went 3 for 3 on the night. The other play was fight doesn't go the distance at minus 190. So walk away with the victory there. And then let's talk about the next matchup, the co-main event of the evening, where we had Edmund Shabazian, who was plus 160 against Anthony Hernandez, who things got hairy early. First few minutes, Edmund Shabazian looked like he was dialed in, which he typically is early in fights. And then the wheels fell off. About a round and a half in, Anthony Hernandez just turned on the jets. And it was also, you had Edmund Shabazian running out of gas, running out of answers, getting caught on the bottom. And Hernandez was just draining that gas tank of Shabazian. And cheers to everybody who was able to not only play Anthony Hernandez inside the distance, but also the round props out there. That was a very intelligent decision, knowing what was possible here. I had no action on this bout, but Hernandez, he is a fish out of water on the feet, standing at range. Against proficient strikers, we've seen against Kevin Holland and others, he can run into trouble. But the longer fights go, and if you make a mistake on the mat, he's going to capitalize on it. And he has a weaponized gas tank, weaponized cardio. That is a real threat for Anthony Hernandez. So cheers to folks who cashed the Anthony Hernandez tickets. And Shabazian, I mean, he tried to get back to what got him here, obviously, and he had success in the first couple of minutes of the fight. But then we saw going for it comes at a cost, where he wasn't able to stick with it for more than a round and a half. He looked like he was death gassing out there, like he typically does when fights get extended. So I don't think the change of camp has helped him, to be honest. He is who he is. And what do you honestly do at this stage in your career? I know he's 25, but he tried to reinvent himself, Edmund Shabazian, and it hasn't happened. A win over Dalcha Longiambula isn't isn't a great win. So what would you like? I'd like to hear in the comments section, what would you like to see from Edmund Shabazian as he moves forward in his professional mixed martial arts career? On the other side of the coin, Anthony Hernandez, he's a threat now. He's a threat climbing this ladder, looking great out there. So cheers to Anthony Hernandez getting that victory. Now let's chat briefly about the main event of the evening, where we saw Mackenzie Dern, who honestly, she looked like she was fighting angry out there against Angela Hill, like she had a point to prove. And you watched the pre-fight interviews, and that's basically what was happening out there. She made it clear that not only did she not have a great camp, she had gone through a divorce outside of the octagon. And she also lost previous bouts where she had moments. She could not get Yan Xiaonan out of there. And Marina Rodriguez also caused her some fits. But Marina Rodriguez, let's be honest, she could have been taken out with a submission by Mackenzie Dern. And that must have been incredibly frustrating for her. So this time out, the head and arm throw was back. My God, how many times do we have to see the head and arm throw in women's mixed martial arts? It's still a useful tactic in 2023. It's incredible. But hey, Mackenzie Dern, extremely talented. You saw that. And also ferocity, man. She was landing the much, much heavier strikes on on Angela Hill. Angela Hill was eating damage big time. And Mackenzie Dern looked great. She looked great. She had cardio for all 5 rounds and looked more physical here. Just fought angry. And Angela Hill, at 38 years of age, I was a little shocked I didn't see Angela Hill end up retiring on the spot there. I know that she'll probably walk away on her terms, but look at this. I mean, she's fought killers at the division. A 115-pound fighter who has made the most of her God-given ability. Clearly, Angela Hill, she's a dog out there. I mean, her wins, even against Lupita Godinez and others, very impressive stuff throughout her career. And she's someone who has not given up on themselves. And you could talk about all facets of life. Angela Hill is really somebody to look to for inspiration. Somebody who has been beaten and taken some big time brutal losses, but has come back and and had been dealt a new hand. So excellent main event of the evening. I'll be honest, I wish that this fight, that we had another high profile contender matchup in another weight division. Namely, how about there are so many UFC bantamweights on the roster, men's bantamweight fights. We have a bunch coming up here, but I think we would have been better served with a men's bantamweight contender matchup. But again, we were dealt Mackenzie Dern and Angela Hill. Interesting how that happens here. But Mackenzie Dern walks away with victory. And what should be noted also is Mackenzie Dern, that line was fallen from the -170s, the -160s, the -150s. So the books aren't always right here. And do your due diligence, watch the tape, listen to the interviews, crunch the numbers, and then come out the other side with your own picks and the handicapping process. You have to be able to first develop a winning process and then trust it and go with it. So the pick was Mackenzie Dern. I had no action on the bout, but she ends up getting the win. And in hindsight, you have to wonder what folks were thinking laying money on Hill there. So interesting spot. And of course, um, Mr. Hindsight, it's not a good look. Not a good look. So um, we we move forward, and there's your UFC Vegas 73 recap. Want to wish everybody a tremendous Monday. We have a break here of a couple of weeks between now and the next UFC. So we're gonna continue this journey together, and now up over 100, I believe 124 units, hitting bets at 62%. I believe I have over 1,000 track bets, and um, the arrows pointed up. The career trajectory of my MMA handicapping process continues to go up. Another thing I have to mention also, as far as the amount of units risked, I believe in 2023, the most amount of units I've risked on any specific fight is only 2.5 units total risked. And that's just something that throughout the course of time, been able to really try to grind down and make the most of these uh, opportunities, and not force action. Pick my spots, take one fight at a time, and it's just becoming more disciplined throughout the course of time. We are not a finished product. You have every day you can continue to evolve and learn from your mistakes, and continue to move forward. And that's what I've tried to do. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in this morning. Another thing is, if you wouldn't mind just liking and subscribing to the channel. One of my goals, personal goals last year in 2022, I was hoping, maybe this was a lofty goal, unachievable goal, but put out a ton of free content over the past, gosh, for many, many, many years. But um, I've made a concerted effort to the YouTube channel here recently, and my goal was 5,000 subscribers, personal goal. This was in 2022, and I've only reached about 400 or so subscribers. But I've never been one to e-beg or to really reach out and ask for subscribers. But I just hope that um, these efforts of mine are not for nothing. I um, am passionate about the uh, the sport, and I have really put in the time and the effort, and we've been reaping the rewards too. So it's nice to be able to cash those tickets, and we hope to continue to do so throughout 2023. This is our sixth consecutive winning year, and taking one fight at a time. That's the sentiment here. So cheers to you on this beautiful Monday morning. Enjoy the break, and remember to go get what's yours, my friends. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Cheers.